Hello everyone, I'm here today to review Gaza's Voices of a Genocide, and it's a collection of essays mostly edited by Verso. I did get approved from NetGalley for this, so thank you NetGalley and Verso for allowing me to read this early. The book is coming out on the 7th of October, so probably when you see this it has already come out. And it's, as I said, a collection of essays mostly, although there's also a couple of poems and a couple of illustrated bits, as in graphic novel sort of style. And they are different voices from Gaza, and the stories are mostly between 2023 and almost now, like beginning of 2025. So kudos to the editors of this book to getting the book out as soon as possible, so that it can be as relevant as possible and as impactful as possible. I really appreciated that. And yeah, basically different essays have different perspectives. Some of them deal with the more historical aspects of the Israeli occupation and how Israel came to be and how Gaza came to the point that they are at the moment. Some of them were more personal, of people actually living in Gaza or having people that live in Gaza close to them, and all of the anguish and fear and violence that entails, including like some horrific stuff. There were also a couple of essays about the environmental impacts of the war, how they are, I think the statistic was they destroyed 85% of the plants in Gaza. So that also relates to the famine, but it's not just plants that give food, just trees and other things. So they are really making the country a puddle of rubble, of toxic waste, of decomposing bodies. So it's an environment that is very difficult to live in and very toxic in some places, and how that is destroying the nature, the animal lives that were lost as well as the climate change impact on CO2 emissions of such war. And yeah, I think this book is really good. Like, all of the essays and all of the things that we're saying were really impactful, and there was not one that I thought could just not be there. I think all of them had an impact in different ways. I think the ones that impacted me the most were the more factual of them, just because that's how my mind works, but I completely see how the more emotional parts of it would really connect with other people that might find it compelling to help these people in that way. I also found very interesting the discussion about colonialism, and the definitions of genocide. So, in the part of colonialism, there was a very long discussion in several of the essays about how the way that Israel came to be was a deeply colonial view from Britain mostly, but the Western world in general, to think that they could just repair the damage that they did by sending the Israelis to Israel and assume there was nobody there. And there was also comparisons between genocides committed in America, in Australia, to the native people, and how colonialism and genocide go hand in hand often, and this is no exception. There was also a discussion about the fact that genocide doesn't only mean to kill people, but it also means to destroy their hopes, their culture. An important thing that was so told as well was the hope of going back to their land, and that's where the environmental part of it also comes into it, because they are not just destroying people, killing people, amputating people, they are also destroying the land in a way that the people that are going to be lucky enough to flee have no hope to going back, which is it's really heartbreaking. There was also a couple of essays about the the cultural washing that Israel is trying to do with like things like Eurovision and World Cup. And also there was a very interestingly weird connection in one of the essays with PETA, the animal rights organization in the US, and how they are actually really defending Israel in some ways. Like they have recognized the loss of animal loss in the war in Gaza, but they have never recognized, there was not one single time that they recognized that that was caused by Israel. It just seemed like the animals in Gaza were just dying out of there. And also that they have named Tel Aviv the vegan capital of the world, even though Israel is like the second or third consumer of meat in the world. And that's a very weird thing for them to do. Like they don't need to get involved in this war, and yet they are doing it in a very destructive way, in a way. I found that very strange. There was also some bit about how in particular Germany is causing this genocide by second-hand genocide. So they obviously committed genocide against the Jews during the Nazi regime, and now they are so afraid of doing anything that they are allowing this second genocide to happen, which was also interesting and connecting again back to the colonialist ideas and the Western ideology of Israel being like this buffer zone between the Arab and the Asian world and the like civilized Western world or whatever. And that's why Israel is getting away with things that they shouldn't be getting away with. And then there was also one of the last essays I found also very empowering, because he talked about the fact that some people are saying that defending Palestinians is anti-Semitic, and how that is actually very offensive to Jews in general, or it should be offensive to Jews, because there's nothing Jewish about committing a genocide. And saying that, justifying what's happening in Gaza because of how Jews were treated, and like the Judaism in general, means that there is something fundamentally Jewish about what's happening, and that's not the case. What's happening is happening because of power and because of colonial ideas. It's not happening because of any religious belief. And so saying that what Israel is doing is committing genocide and it's not acceptable doesn't mean that it's against Jews. It just means it's against genocide. And those are very two different things. And people who equate one to the other are actually lowering Jews' moral compasses to what the Israeli government is doing. And that should not be the case, and that's why saying that defending Palestine is anti-Semitic is completely wrong. And I found that very powerful, because I think that one in particular gave me the language to combat those ideas that have been expressed. And I knew that it was not right, but I didn't have the words to express it eloquently, and I think that essay in particular did give me the words to better explain that part of this conflict. And there were also a couple of essays about the Palestinians as people and just individuals within Palestine, the kind of lives they live, the kind of things they do. In particular, some essays about some empowered feminist teenagers and the things that they did before the genocide and during the genocide, and just portraying Palestinian people as whole people rather than just these numbers of killed kids and killed adults, and showing that they are also people. There was also some discussions about the kind of society that they were trying to build before the war started and the genocide started, and it is very relatable in many ways. Like, they were trying to implement climate change mitigation policies and solar panels and all of that. They were trying to improve their country. They were trying to build universities in which their people could learn and grow and empower themselves. All the things that all of the countries want to do, and how Israel is specifically targeting things like that to try to reduce their lives and their narrative to these victims that have nothing other than being victims. There was also, of course, a lot of essays about how the Israeli government is making everywhere unsafe, and how they are specifically targeting civilians. There was one particular essay about this girl, and I think it's a famous case. This girl that was in a car with her family, and the car was bombed and everyone else died, and she was waiting for help, and so the Israelis said, "Don't worry, help is coming," and they called the Red Cross equivalent there, and while the Red Cross was approaching, when the Israeli soldiers saw that approaching, they bombed it, so they killed all the medics and the kid at the end. And they just used the kid kind of as a signal to be able to kill the aid as well. There was one very disturbing essay about the use of social media by Israeli soldiers. It's not just that they are killing them, they're making fun of them in social media, which is horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And yeah, that was really disturbing. I mean, I knew that they were probably not very sorry of what they were doing, but seeing it in that lens was crazy. So yeah, as I said, this is a very very complete collection, lots of different angles to see the situation, all of them really hard and heavy, but all of them worth reading and all of them important. I think it's a very, very important book. I would recommend it to everybody. I think I'm going to buy a copy myself so that I can lend it to people, because I think it's a brilliant collection, and as I said, all of the essays were good. There was not one single one that I thought could be skipped. So yeah, highly recommend. Please pick it up. It's a great book. It's a very important topic, and I hope you learn from it. And until next video, bye.